Hey everyone, welcome back to Locked In. We're going to turn our focus back to Alabama tonight, maybe in a more speculative way than we have in the past, because one of the things that we've noticed just in the past weekend is, with the recent departure of linebackers coach down there, there are a few spots left on the staff, and we're getting awful close to spring practice, and that's one of the things that has kind of intrigued us, and we wondered what some of our Alabama fans are thinking about um, the upcoming spring practice. Seems like head coach Kellen DeBoer has got a lot on his plate. He's probably going to be pretty hands-on with the offense, quarterbacks, just things in general, and he seems to be taking a really aggressive approach to social media, to making appearances. I mean, he's doing all the things that he has to do to really pump the program, and I think you got to like that. But I think at some point, you got to wonder where is acquiring these assistant coaches at some vital positions going to come in. Before we jump into it, we want to say that we appreciate everybody who's recently subscribed to the channel. We're pushing close to 500. We appreciate y'all helping us out. Lots of viewers, still out there who haven't subscribed. Help us out. And hit the subscribe button for us, and we really appreciate the time you spend watching. And we're amazed that we've grown this channel as much as we have, and we thank you for all you've done for us. So, gentlemen, what do we want to say about the current coaching or assistant coaching situation at Alabama on the I guess on the cusp of spring practice?
On the cusp of spring practice, they got a spring game April 13th. And one thing that we've saw ever since the whole Ryan Grubb situation is just that suspect, slimy, I guess you'd call it, just coaching moves in Alabama where you don't really know what to think about them sometimes, and there's no clear, concise choice or explanation given by anybody there. It's not really talked about much, so they're it's kind of hush hush. Honestly, I said I don't even think uh, that one coaching change is being mentioned anywhere on any news article. Nothing. So I mean, I don't know. It's just very suspect to me. I don't know. I don't like it. So then I don't know if players will like it. And with that other transfer portal opening up in April, we could see some big names leave potentially.
As far as what we're currently looking at for Alabama, they have six coaches listed on their coaching staff on their website. Obviously, DeBoer is head coach. Freddie Roach is listed as defensive line. Jamarcus Shepard is the co-offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach. Robert Gillespie is running backs coach. Caden Womack is defensive coordinator and linebackers, and Nick Sheridan is offensive coordinator quarterbacks. You can have 10 on-field coaches in D1 football. So we're missing four spots, which is pretty significant this far into the spring. I mean, I guess for places that are still on the job hunt and coaches transferring around, I guess you could say it's not super late, but in my opinion, it is, especially at a program like Alabama. And when you have a couple of these positions that seem to be sewed up not that long ago, and all of a sudden there's more changes with departure of their offensive line coach, I think is the biggest glaring one to us. You need to get your offensive line in check. You need to have it ready to go. There was a sore spot for Alabama over this last year. I would say most Alabama fans would agree with that. And you still don't have an offensive line coach on staff right now. So that's got to be a little bit concerning. You did get the center from UW, came over with DeBoer to Alabama. So that's nice having a guy you trust coming over. We here at Locked In value the center quite a bit. So his name is Parker Brailsford. So he was a starting center at UW. I'm assuming going to be the starting center at Alabama. He'll be very useful to get some teaching in, some help in. But you got to get that coach. And we're getting up to them starting spring practice in just a couple of weeks, almost I think just a week, and then that spring game in about a week. So there's a lot of unknowns and what ifs surrounding the program, which is a place at Alabama. I mean, they're used to it with coordinators and assistants going to different places, but the figurehead was always there, and you knew that you were going to have guys on staff when you needed them. And obviously, you assume that you're going to have it when you need them at some point, but that time is getting shorter and shorter right now. And it just feels very strange to see coaches who they're not officially announced as on staff in Alabama, but it's like a accepted thing among all the insiders at Alabama that they are there. That's what they're going to be. They know their roles, and then they up and leave in a few weeks. So just a lot of strange stuff going on around the program. And like Chance mentioned, you have the second transfer portal window, which is conveniently 2 days after Alabama plays their spring games. They play theirs on April 13th. The portal opens on April 15th, and it closes on April 30th. There's a 15-day window there for kids to decide if they want to transfer out of whatever school they're at. And within now to April 15th is the time that all these kids at Bama are going to decide whether this is where they want to stay and, stick out with DeBoer, see where this thing goes, see if Bama, feel out if Bama is still the Bama they came to or wanted to go to. And if not, if they don't feel that way, they have every opportunity to leave and go find a place elsewhere. And I'm sure that most teams will be very happy to add some Alabama transfers to their teams. So this is a very interesting situation that I think Alabama finds themselves in.
Yeah, the one that I go back to is that offensive line spot because we've, regardless of what people, we've taken some positions that people disagree with about quarterbacks, and that's okay because everybody's going to debate their opinion on it. But the thing that I think, even if if we're in support of a quarterback, if we're critical of a quarterback, uh, the thing that it seems like everybody has agreed on is that offensive line was in need of work. And just to me, one of the things that I couldn't get over was I know Michigan really ate them up in that first half of the Rose Bowl game, but the thing that stood out a lot was that there were times whenever just fan blocking to the left side would have solved a lot of their problems. And I know that Alabama has to have players that could carry that out and connect to those blocks. You wonder why they don't. And I mean, and it could be that the players are just unaware. It could be that they're not coached up to the point to where they need to be. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I do know that that's a place right now that I think that it's not optimal to have your offensive line coach leave. And and he did he not go to Seattle? Is that correct?
He did.
And so you can't blame him. There are lots of people making those moves right now that they want to jump out of the of what the recruiting landscape has become. It's always, I think, would be a tough deal about being a position coach in colleges. You're going to have to probably be on the road recruiting unless you're just I guess in a unique position. But that's the thing I always think about those NFL jobs is it seems like that there's more I guess at homeness, even though that they would be equally as demanding of your time. But I just don't know going into spring. I think you'd like to have, somebody there for the, the kids to be working with. And maybe there is somebody, that we just don't know about, but it seems like that's a pretty high profile job. And, they lost a lot, lost some, some pretty good skill on offense. And so, I really think that's going to be their spot. It seems like the defense should be strong. We talked about that a little earlier before we started recording it. I think their defense is going to be their strong suit. But the thing of it is, if it were me, that would make me, I would be nervous as all get out because that Washington defense wasn't the best in the world. And that certainly wasn't what their strong suit was. They had their moments, and they had their had their names last year, but I don't know that I don't think that's where you want to be sitting is going in with a head coach like Kalen DeBoer saying that our defense is going to be our strong suit. Um, Hopefully they can figure something out. In my opinion, a video like this is really it's more I guess question asking than it is criticizing because I just think it's interesting. I couldn't imagine being in this position where they're at, this late in the game because early March, if you're on a college campus, early March, you're geared up for spring practice and time's at hand. And the thing that makes it so different now is like what, Chance and Red both have mentioned is the possibility of shifting rosters in late April make I think this a tough situation or an interesting situation, maybe even a little more so. So I'm anxious to see what happens. Anxious to hear what people think about it.
Yeah, and I think that part of this could be because of Nick Saban. 'Cause, we all still know that he's in the building, and why are you leaving as a possible linebackers coach that was with Washington that they wanted and DeBoer wanted, and you're going to go to Tennessee. I don't know. I just don't get that. Like the way better job. You get more athletes at Alabama, easier to
Yeah.
recruit at Alabama. So, and for what it's worth, Kalen DeBoer's linebackers looked like trash last year. So that wasn't the same guy that had him last year, but uh, you know, it wouldn't be bad. Like it wouldn't be too hard to make them Alabama linebackers look good. And I think it'd be a pretty easy job. But I don't know. I just don't get that. Like why go to Tennessee over Alabama?
Yeah. Interesting. I mean,
I
I
don't
say
know.
that as somebody with a tie to Tennessee. I don't think that, outside of just sheer emotion, if you strip emotion out of it, I think you would have a hard time saying that, there's no way that, I would go to Tennessee when I have a job at Alabama. And, like I say, I mean, I know a lot of times Tennessee folks, they don't necessarily like my opinions on Tennessee, but that I think you're exactly right. Because, I mean, there's certain places that are the places to be. And that's like, you've heard me say, countless times, that I'm not a Georgia guy. But if I'm going to pattern a program right now after somebody, it's going to be Georgia. And and I like the things they do. And so when I say that about Tennessee, there's no disrespect. That's just it's a firm knowing of who they are. Like a team like that, can they compete for a SEC championship? Yeah, they can. But are they going to do it every year? Tennessee fans will say they will. History says they will not. Alabama's going to be in that window, and it's more. I think it's more extraordinary when Alabama is not in that SEC championship conversation than than when they are. You expect them every year. It's like if they're not there, it's like, well, good Lord, what happened to Alabama? And
Mhm.
people will be talking about it. So yeah, you can't blame you can't blame a guy for going to Alabama, but William Inge going to Tennessee, that is interesting. I mean, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and along with that, what we was saying earlier about them relying on the defense, if you did watch the Washington defense last year, it mainly just relied on guys being athletic. So the bat like if they could out athlete a team with their defense, they were probably going to do pretty well. That's and same thing when it comes to the D line. If they could win their one on one matchups, they do fine. And coming to Alabama, that's the thing. Everybody on their roster with what they have, so you got a lot of talent. And I mean top 5, top 4, even top 2 talent out of overall talent in college football. So I mean, with that defense, they could pretty much line up, do whatever they did last year, and run wild and pretty much be unstoppable on defense. But the thing about that is, where does that translate in, say 2 years, even 4 or 5 years?
Hmm.
It just doesn't translate. So I mean, yeah, while they're fine now, they also lost. They have a Saban tax now. Saban's not gone, so tax is going to go up on players. What they was paying with Saban down here because I'm going to go to the league. I'm going to make all this money. They're now going to pay. Hey, I'm with Kalen DeBoer. You're not Nick Saban. So you got to pay me a little bit more. So you're having to spend more money to get the same talent acquisition. So I just don't think it's possible to be as talented as a roster with Kalen DeBoer. So I mean, you're already losing that. You're losing out on coach, and Nick Saban's still in the building saying, "Hey, I don't like this guy. I don't hire him." His input's still there, and you got to listen to it. And I think the best option might just be getting the double wing with Milrow at quarterback, let him run the ball on with Justice Haynes and old Jace McClellan. Like my word.
Yeah, so obviously this is a lot of unknowns surrounding the Alabama football
Hmm.
team, and a lot of what ifs of or what can happen going forward, what might happen going forward. How's this all look when we hit that April window? What's it look like at that spring game? I've seen a lot of chatter about people excited, but also uh, pretty pretty worried about how that spring game is going to look if they're
Sure.
honest with themselves, which is a fair. I mean, that's a fair thing. I don't think that anyone would fault you if you're an Alabama fan and you say, "Hey, I actually am worried about this." You'd have a right to be. So you know, don't let anybody tell you you're not a true fan just because you're worried about the situation of your team. But I'm sure that many people who watch this are going to have plenty of opinions, and we want to know how does an average Alabama fan feel about what's going on? How do you feel about your coaching situation? How do you feel about your program as a whole? How you feel about the spring game coming up? So you know, let us know in the comments, and you know, we'll hear good or bad. We're just interested to see what you guys are thinking in regards to your football team.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'll say before we leave is, I mean, the first day that they announced it, I guess, honestly, we beat them to the punch. Technically,
Yeah,
Chance and I,
yes.
Rev, he said miraculously screenshotted I guess the mistaken release
Mistaken article.
of the DeBoer hire back then when. So I mean, we've been talking DeBoer at Alabama before anybody else has, I think. I mean, I know, honestly, but I still have confidence in the guy. He's a good coach.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what he does. And I think that, he's really going to be up to the task. I think it's going to be a tough task, but, that's what happens whenever you replace, the greatest of all time.
Mhm.
It is what it is. So I look forward to seeing what he does. That's just like what I've said about, with Milroe at quarterback. I mean, I'm interested to see what he does. There's so much, negativity that can be, I guess, spun out of the conversations on Alabama. I'm just interested to see how they react because this is not what they've dealt with in many, many years. And you got to go back quite a while to find this much, I guess, maybe not negativity, but definitely this much, I guess, questioning
Mhm.
surrounding that program. So it's interesting to see them back in that place. I mean, I'm sure it's not for fans, but who knows? I mean, there's potential to be great. There's potential for things to go wrong, and it'll probably be someplace in the middle. So I'm interested to see how it works out.
Yeah, any of those want to reach out to us, you can in the comments. Also, business email, lockedinfb@outlook.com, will be in the description below. With all that being said, though, let's see how the tide rolls, I guess. For all of us here, stay locked in, everyone.